Alright champions, so we're back with this Silverface Twin. First thing I'm going to do is snippety-doo-dah out all the parts we don't like. Investigate what of the wiring can stay with that green goo happening on a few wires. It seems to be only one or two or three or four. We'll check components for drift, remove whatever we don't like, and just start cleaning the thing and prepping it for all the new components and reassembly and testing. So, my favourite part, getting rid of all the stuff I don't like. If only it was that easy in other aspects of life. Now it's easy enough to remove this board to access the other side. I want to give it a full inspection anyway. Don't want to leave anything to chance. But that will allow us to heat the bottom of these eyelets instead of the top, where we'll melt more of the jacket than we need to. So we'll disconnect these three wires that are going through from this side, and then we should be able to open it up like a hinge this way. There we go. Have a look at the insulator board. That's all covered in wax too. We'll try and clean off as much of that as we can. The wax will be in the fibre of the stuff, but at least it's not a big pool on the surface as well. No evidence of arcing or anything, so that's good. Okay, so my OCD got the better of me. I stripped the whole board. So now I'll clean up all those eyelets with some fresh solder and then get rid of that. And soak it in some alcohol for a while, soften up that wax and the hard and crusty flux, and give her a good old scrub. Do that a few times and she'll be ready to repopulate. Right, so next I'll just get some isopropyl on this thing and just use the paper as like a wick, just to keep it on there instead of it just running off and evaporating, so it has more time to work its magic. I'll get the backing piece there as well. Just set them aside and just keep it moist there for a little while to soften everything up over time. That flux is really hard and does require some time for the alcohol to penetrate back into it. Alright, so as for the tone stack, this customer got this done about 10 years ago, and he can't remember if he actually asked for it. As far as I remember our conversation happening, it's a few weeks ago now. He couldn't remember if he actually asked for these mods or if he sort of got talked into it by the previous tech, but at the end of the day he just wants it returned back to the stock circuit, so I'm happy to do that for him. Still remove these components with care because I want to give them back to him in a functional state if possible. Now these are those really crappy brand, SM brand silver mica caps, just generics. They almost always either give noise or fail after a while, particularly in this application, so I'll replace that with a nice Fichet ceramic. We'll remove the slope resistor as well, return that to its stock value instead of this 56k, and we'll revert back to 100k for the plate loads as per the factory circuit. Now as for this split cathode, the circuit shows that it's a split cathode, so I think this may be some other revision from Fender where they linked them, but I've got to look a little bit further into that and figure out what the story was there. But I'm going to clean up this whole area, and since we're taking all of this out, I'm just going to remove everything in this area and give that board a clean as well, because you can see the congealed wax in that area and the big chunks of flux and dirt and stuff that's built up, and the pretty poor soldering and lead preparation. So it gives us an opportunity while everything's taken out to clean the whole area up. Now the funniest thing with this amp, which really made me laugh, you can see a little bit of purple there hanging out under that board. Someone has jammed like a school kid's ruler, like a plastic ruler, under that board for some reason. I've got no idea why that's occurred. That's anyone's guess. I can't figure out if they thought it was leaking through under the board or something, or I've got no idea, but we'll probably go crazy trying to figure that out. So let's just remove it and inspect under the board if we can, and see if maybe there was some motive behind that, or if it was just pure insanity. Out she comes. There it is, and it's got some melts from soldering near it, and there's probably other chunks of it still stuck under there. So I'll undo these screws, maybe get a bit of extra slack on the leads if possible, and we'll have a look under the board and see if there's any other stuff under there. You know, I'm starting to think maybe it's a quicker and easier option just to depopulate the entire board and give it a clean, because there's quite a bit more of that green corrosion stuff. As I melt the wire, some of it's starting to spew out, so that's a bit of a worry. Alright, so we've got enough give on the main board there after removing the ground bus from the front, the brass strip across the front to all these wires. I've managed to remove the excess stationery. I've got no idea what that was in there for. There's no real justification as far as I can see, and the board's still in decent condition, but we can clean that off as well. I think it might have been an attempt to stop some board leakage happening, possibly just from contamination, so we'll clean that up. So this is where it starts to get messy. I've just got a palette knife here that I'll get the excess wax off with, but we'll need a bit of heat to get into the nooks and crannies, as we say over here, and finish it off with some alcohol to try and remove some of the contamination. You can see there just the dirt and grunge and stuff that's in that wax. That can absorb moisture and become conductive over time. Alright, so that's the normal channel area completely depopulated now, to allow us to get in there and clean it up. So it's a time consuming job, but you know what's more time consuming? When it fails on the road and you've got to go and fix it. Or it just keeps coming back when you do the bare minimum and comes back 3 or 4 times before you got it sorted, and it's just demoralising for all involved. So I'd rather spend the time. That's why we're not the cheapest around. Spend the time, do it properly the first time. And I was talking to a friend about this recently. It's considered a job done well if you never see the bloke with that amp again, or if you see him, you know, every 3 years for a service or something, or just if a valve's gone down or something. But it's like that you can sort of see where they're coming from with these companies that want to ping you for a subscription fee. Because if you build something really good or do a really good job, you don't see them for a long time afterwards, and you get no more money out of them. Maybe I should have amp subscriptions. You've got to pay a subscription fee or the amp turns off. That's interesting too. I've found a couple of snipped off leads floating around in the chassis and stuck between the boards, almost like they're from factory. So that's never good. Just getting the excess of the wax off. And palette knife. I'll give it some heat and some alcohol after that. Alright, so I've pretty much ended up pulling the whole board, at least from one side. I'm kind of glad I did. You can see all the little dendrites of solder from being reworked over the years, and the excess solder not being sucked out, just more added on top. And you can see what the wax has done to the plating there. That was a big pool of wax. I've scraped it all off now as best as I can. I'll get some more off with some naphtha. But yeah, this has large blobs of solder everywhere, big pools of wax.
in big chunks, and it's got that green goo which is seeped down from some of the wires too. So I want to clean all of that up just to reduce the possibility that any of these areas will conduct through the board itself. Alright champions, so I started cleaning the board and then I thought I'll leave what I feel comfortable leaving on it, which is nothing. Yeah, it was easy cleaning up here, but once the board got more complex up this end, I really couldn't get under anything to clean it, so I got a bit carried away. Now I won't be able to go to sleep tonight. I'll just have to stay here finishing it, and let's never speak of this again. So although fully removing this board is going to take way longer than I allowed for, the OCD got the better of me, and that's my responsibility. But at least we can take solace in the fact that after this cleaning, the boards are going to look something like that, and that's going to put our mind at ease when we reinstall them, that there won't be any weirdness, at least none due to the board itself. Alright, now don't they look pretty? Maybe a massive pain in the ass, but at least they're pretty. I'll get the Mega onto that and I'll check for any leakage, particularly between these two eyelets, which is the bias feed there and the HT feeding the plate resistors for the PI there. And that's the power supply board, that's the bias and rectifier board, and here's the two backing boards which I've also cleaned up nicely. So let's work on repopulating this thing, eh? It's almost a full rebuild now. So here's my pile of parts I'm considering going through, checking tolerances and reusing. And here's what I call the fuck it bucket with all the parts that are either wrong values, out of tolerance, or due for replacement, as well as the ruler there. Alright, so I've got the Mega set to 1000 volts there. You can see the movement. Testing between our two critical points, there is no appreciable movement at all. Let's just test between some other random points. That's 1000 volts. It's more than double the working voltage of the amp. And we're looking good, even the ones really close together. No movement at all. So that's promising. That's one less thing to worry about.